How do you think you would react if you entered your house after picking up something to drink and found one of your friends being intimate with your fiancé 2 days before the wedding? For reference, I'm now 31 male, but this happened in 2014 when I was 6, and my ex-fiancé was 25 female. Let's call her Barb. We met in college and dated for 3 years prior to our engagement, with a wedding date booked by the 4th year. Neither of our parents are well off financially, and she was attending grad school, so the financial responsibility fell on me, which totaled $20,000 that was paid in full 4 days prior to the wedding. Leading up to that nightmare of an evening, we had our typical mid-20s relationship issues with bouts of poor communication, excessive drinking on weekends, and an occasional fight over trivial BS. Aside from that, we had a great relationship and spent a ton of time together figuring out post-college life and planning for our future. As I said above, the wedding and reception venue cashed my check 4 days before the wedding, and the contract stated this was non-refundable. Over 120 guests were confirmed, a couple of dozen from out of state, tuxes and bridesmaids' dresses were fitted and paid for, and everything was falling into place. Now let's get to the inevitable crapstorm of events that you're all interested in before I keep rambling. The night in question was a Friday evening in our new apartment that we'd moved into a few weeks prior, and we decided to have about a dozen friends over to pre-game and head out to the bars in town. Included in this group of friends was my buddy, whom I've known since kindergarten. We'll call him Ricky. Barb and I spent a lot of time with Ricky over the last 3 years, and he was definitely one of her favorite pals, which is generally awesome when your SO gets along with people in your social circle. The night started at a local hookah lounge that was bring your own beer, so by the time we left there, a fifth of Jameson and a 30 rack of Yuengling were gone, and everyone was buzzed. The next 3 hours were spent between 2 to 3 bars that resulted in the entire group devolving into a drunken, belligerent mess. Once the bars closed, most people went home, with the exception of myself, Barb, Ricky, and another couple who came back to our apartment for a nightcap. Once back at our place, the couple only lasted another 20 minutes before calling it and making their way home, so I was left with Barb and friggin' Ricky. Earlier in the night at the hookah bar, I noticed Barb checking her phone more than usual and simultaneously Ricky checking his phone after she would lock the screen. I almost put 2 and 2 together, but why would I worry about them planning anything shady 2 days before I was supposed to marry this girl? Back at my house, I was fairly sober and noticed all the booze was gone. So I was contemplating picking up a couple of 6-packs from a local spot that stays open until 3 a.m. Barb and Ricky were definitely on the liquor and tanked, but there was no reason to suspect anything sketchy would occur if I ran out for 20 minutes. Once in my car and preparing to exit my apartment complex, I got a sinking feeling in my gut that something wasn't right, and it completely freaked me out. So I called my best bud, and he agreed to be picked up and joined me on the beer run. After grabbing some Bud Heavies and returning home, we walked up to the sliding glass door that led to my living room, which had a sectional to the immediate right. We opened the door, took 2 steps inside the apartment, and my ex-fiancé was completely topless and mounted on Mr. Ricky, effing tonsil deep down each other's throats. The amazing part of the situation was neither of them appeared to notice that my buddy and I were 10 feet away watching their sloppy, drunken escapades. After 7 to 10 seconds of attempting to comprehend the situation, I lost it, dropped the booze, threw her backward off Ricky completely topless, and landed 2 hard right hooks to Ricky's eye and cheek while he was still laying on his back with the most terrified look on his face. To put things in perspective, I am 6 feet, 220 pounds, and have played hockey my entire life. He is 5'6", 140 pounds, and a runner. Immediately following the assault with my fist, Ricky started snoring. I didn't know this was a thing, and he was asleep for at least 5 minutes while I was losing my mind over the situation. Without thinking, I called her parents about 10 times until they woke up and demanded they come pick up their cheating daughter immediately. Their house was only 5 minutes down the road, so they walked in shortly thereafter while I was laying into Barb about her unforgivable, disgusting decision. Her parents frantically walked into me screaming at Barb, Ricky passed out on the couch, and my buddy mediating the situation. The first thing I told everyone was the wedding was effing off. I demanded the ring back and said I'd rather lose $20K than spend the rest of my life with a cheating bee. Her parents spent the next 20 minutes attempting to talk me out of it and occasionally defending Barb's actions. saying things like, "Why can't you forgive her?" or "Isn't it too late to cancel the wedding?" Meanwhile, Ricky woke up, and the right side of his face had swollen to the size of a grapefruit, and his left eye was completely shut. Kicking him out of the apartment was tough, because he was too drunk to drive. So I called his brother, who was 20 minutes away, and spent that time laying into Barb, Ricky, and her parents. Surprisingly, I was able to stay level-headed enough to express my thoughts in such an extreme state of rage. The few times I've been this upset in the past, my brain felt like it was scrambled, and I had a hard time condensing and forming my thoughts into logical statements. Not this time. By the time Ricky's brother picked him up and Barb's parents shuttled her home, I had systematically picked apart any objection, opinion, or plea for reconsideration expressed by everyone in the room. It felt really effing great. I'm not going to pretend the following months were easy and everything worked out in my favor. 2 months later, the pharma company I worked at decided to lay off my entire division. I had racked up thousands in credit card debt to pay for the wedding. Unemployment haunted me for 5 months, and I was diagnosed with major depression. Life was effed up for a few years, and I wouldn't wish that on anybody. But now, I'm 31. Things have settled down, and I couldn't be happier. Thank you for letting me get this off my chest. Small update. I received no compensation from her family to cover any wedding expenses, but they aren't exactly well off, so I wasn't expecting anything at all. The engagement ring was a tough one because although I paid about $1,700 for it a year prior, Barb managed to beat the ever-living crap out of it. During that time, she managed to crack a small diamond on the left side and scratch up the white gold on the outside. I took it to 4 or 5 different jewelers for an appraisal, and the best offer I received was $100. So I just accepted and used that money to buy tickets to see the Black Dahlia murder in Philly. Worth it. I'm definitely much happier these days. Cognitive behavioral therapy was fantastic for a year in conjunction with some meds that I still take just in case. Life circumstances improved drastically as well, so it's been a bumpy ride, but I'm cruising along. The only red flag I saw previously happened about 6 months prior to the wedding, and in hindsight, I should have walked away instead of waiting. We all were out at the bars, sitting around a large table, drinking pitchers and chatting. I was on the opposite side of the table from Barb and Ricky, who were sitting next to each other, but that was no big deal. I was hanging out with other friends. During the course of the night, I noticed some shady things, like secluding themselves from the group conversation, paying me no attention, talking secretly to each other at close range, etc. After the bars closed, I drove Barb back to her parents' house and said goodnight, but felt like something was off all night. So I went to Wawa and got some food and circled back to the apartment complex to play private investigator. I dropped her off around 2:15 a.m., and around 3:05 a.m., I see the unmistakable 2004 Audi S4 with electric blue paint and black wheels making its way towards her apartment. Ricky parks out front and waits. Meanwhile, I'm about 100 feet away to his left, having heart palpitations. A minute later, out walks Barb in a new outfit, happily strolling to his car. That's when I threw it in reverse, switched on my high beams, and floored it directly towards Ricky's driver's side door to announce my presence. Neither of them knew how to react, obviously, but their excuse was that they both just needed someone to talk to, and I had nothing to worry about. Well, that didn't go over well. Ricky was told to F off back to his mom's basement, and I decided to sleep over at Barb's to ensure he didn't show up again. It took a few weeks to reconcile with Ricky, but they both assured me over and over that I had nothing to worry about going forward. Well, apparently I did. Mother effers. In my case, it never crossed my mind to think, but I love her, I can't lose her. She's the best thing that has ever happened in my life. For some reason, my brain is good at compartmentalizing thoughts and feelings when it comes to relationships. It's sad to see so many people stuck in toxic relationships and can't bring themselves to move on. Regarding Barb, well, she lost her core group of friends after they found out she cheated on me, then cheated on the next 3 to 4 boyfriends, dropped out of grad school, still lives with her parents, and makes far less money than I do. She apologized for a couple of weeks, but I cut her off after I found someone to sublet our apartment about a month after the incident. The only explanation I received was, I was drunk, or we were totally blackout drunk. Neither were comforting, so I moved on. Regarding Ricky, he did not call the cops, partly because he felt horrible about the situation and knew he deserved it. He apologized profusely and said he totally understands my reaction and hesitancy to rekindle the friendship. About 2 years ago, he called me and we talked for 2 hours or so, and ultimately, I decided to forgive him. We don't hang out anymore, but I've seen him a dozen times randomly the last couple of years. No hard feelings. Like I said, he's forgiven, but we don't hang anymore, and that's my choice. My advice to you guys: find the strength to speak up if you're feeling uneasy about something your significant other is doing on their end. If you let everything that bothers you slide, and they are the type of crapbird who you suspect of cheating, they'll find ways to take advantage of that lack of accountability. Honestly, you're much better off being thoughtful and direct when communicating with your significant other than holding back your concerns about questionable behavior. You're worth it, and if you uncover infidelity or something related, you'll be so thankful for confronting your significant other and taking appropriate action instead of finding out 5 years from now.